The ship moved slowly through the empty space. Commander Al stood at the front window and watched the darkness. His 4 eyes blinked one after another as he tried to understand what he was seeing on the scanner. "There is something out there," he said to his crew, "something very old." The exploration fleet had been traveling for 6 months. They were looking for new worlds, new resources, and maybe new life. But they had not expected to find anything in this part of space. This sector was supposed to be dead. No stars, no planets, nothing. But the scanner showed a signal, a weak pulse of energy coming from somewhere ahead. Science Officer A walked up to the commander. She was young, only 30 years old, which was very young for a, but she was smart, the person on the ship. "The signal is very old," she said. "My calculations say it has been sending for at least 400,000 years, maybe longer." Al turned to look at her. "That is impossible. No machine can work for that long." "I know," A said, "but the data does not lie." The commander looked back at the window. 500,000 years ago, they were not even alive. They were just simple animals swimming in the oceans of their home world. What kind of beings could build something that lasted so long? He thought about the old stories, the legends that every species in the galaxy knew but nobody believed. Stories about a race called humans, the third species, the ones who came before everyone else. The Galactic Council said these stories were just myths, made-up tales to explain things that nobody understood. The Council had studied the old records and found no proof that humans ever existed. They were probably just a legend, like the gods that ancient used to pray to. But now Al was not so sure. "Take us closer," he ordered, slowly. The ship moved forward, minutes passed, then hours, the signal grew stronger. And then they saw it. At first, Al thought it was a moon, a small gray ball floating in the darkness. But as they got closer, he realized it was not natural. The surface was too smooth, too perfect, and there were patterns on it, lines and shapes that could only be made by intelligent beings. "By the ancestors," A whispered. "It is a structure, an artificial structure." The thing was huge, bigger than anything they had ever built, bigger than their largest space station, bigger than some of their smaller moons. It just floated there, silent and patient, waiting. "Scan it," Al said. His voice was shaking a little. A worked at her station. Her fingers moved fast over the controls. Data flowed across her screen. "The structure is made of materials I do not recognize," she said. "Some kind of metal, but stronger than anything in our database. There is a power source inside, still active after all these years. And there are—" She stopped. Her eyes went wide. "What?" Al asked. "What did you find?" "There are words on the surface, writing, in hundreds of different languages." She looked at the commander with fear in her eyes. "Some of these languages belong to species that have been dead for millions of years. How is that possible?" Al did not answer. He just stared at the structure. His mind was racing. Who built this thing? Why? And why was it still here, still sending its signal, still waiting? "Can you read any of the writing?" he asked. A nodded slowly. "One phrase appears in every language, including our own." She took a deep breath. "It says, 'Welcome, you are not alone. We were here first and we built this for you.'" The bridge went silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They just stood there trying to understand what they had found. Al felt something cold in his stomach. Fear, but also something else. Curiosity, wonder, the need to know more. "We need to go inside," he said. His second officer, a large male named, stepped forward. "Commander, that could be dangerous. We do not know what is in there. It could be a trap." "It could be," Al agreed. "But it could also be the most important discovery in the history of our species. We cannot walk away from this." He looked at his crew. 12, all of them scared, all of them confused, but they trusted him. They had followed him across the galaxy. They would follow him into this strange structure too. "Prepare a landing team," he said. You are with me. You will stay here and keep the ship ready. If we do not come back in 6 hours, leave and tell the council what we found." Wanted to argue, but he knew better. He just nodded and stepped back. An hour later, Al and I stood at the entrance of the structure. Up close, it was even more impressive. The walls were covered with symbols and pictures. Al saw images of stars and planets. He saw creatures he did not recognize. He saw machines and cities and things he could not even name. And in the center of the entrance he saw a picture of a being. It stood on 2 legs with 2 arms and a round head. Its eyes were forward-facing like a hunter, but its face was soft, almost gentle. "Is that a human?" I asked. "I think so," Al said. "I think we just found proof that the legends are real." The door opened. It made no sound. It just slid to the side as if it had been waiting for them. Inside, lights came on. Soft blue lights that showed a long hallway. The air was clean and warm. Everything was perfect, as if the place had been built yesterday. Al took his first step inside. His feet touched the floor and suddenly a voice spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere. It was soft and kind and it spoke in perfect. "Welcome, travelers. We have been waiting for you. Please come in. There is much you need to learn." Al looked at her. She looked back at him. They were both scared, but they were also excited. They walked forward, into the structure, into the unknown, into the truth about the galaxy and the beings who had shaped it long before anyone else existed. The humans had been real, and they had left something behind, something important, something that would change everything. The door closed behind them, and the ancient structure began to wake up. The year was 2847 by the old Earth calendar. Lieutenant Commander Daniel Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Generation ship Eternal Voyage and watched his home planet grow smaller and smaller. Earth was just a blue dot now, a tiny point of light in the darkness. Soon it would disappear completely and Daniel would never see it again. None of them would. He was 32 years old. By the time this mission was complete, he would be long dead. His children would be dead. His would be dead. This was a journey that would take thousands of years, maybe longer. But Daniel did not feel sad. He felt proud. He was part of something bigger than himself, bigger than any single human life. He was part of Project Genesis. Behind him, the door opened. Dr. Laura Mitchell walked in. She was an old woman now, almost 90 years old, but her mind was still sharp. She was the one who had started all of this, the one who had discovered the secret that changed everything. "You should be sleeping," she said. "We have a long journey ahead." Daniel smiled. "I could not sleep, too much to think about." Laura walked up to stand beside him. She looked at Earth too. Her eyes were wet. "I was born on that planet," she said. "I grew up there. I fell in love there. I had my children there. And now I am leaving it forever." "Do you regret it?" Daniel asked. Laura shook her head. "No, this is what I was meant to do, what we were all meant to do." She had discovered it 50 years ago, the truth about the universe, the fact that the laws of physics were not fixed. They could be changed, adjusted, engineered. At first, nobody believed her. The idea was too crazy, too big. But then she proved it. In a small laboratory on the moon, she had changed the gravitational constant in a tiny space, just for a second, just enough to show that it was possible. The world went crazy. Scientists argued, politicians shouted, religious leaders prayed. Everyone wanted to know what this meant. Laura knew what it meant. It meant that humans could do anything. They could build stable wormholes to travel across the galaxy in seconds. They could create new elements that did not exist in nature. They could design star systems from nothing. They could make planets perfect for life. They could become gods. But Laura also knew something else, something that scared her. "If we stay here and use this power, we will destroy everything," she had said at the first council meeting. "Not on purpose, not out of evil, but because we are too strong. Every species that comes after us will live in our shadow. They will worship us or fear us or hate us. They will never be free. They will never grow. We will be the ceiling they cannot break through. The debate lasted for years. Some people wanted to use the power. They wanted to rule the galaxy. They wanted to be gods. But most people listened to Laura. Most people understood. In the end, the vote was almost unanimous. Humanity would not stay. Humanity would not rule. Instead, they would do something much harder, something much more selfless. They would prepare the galaxy for the species that would come after them. They would move stars and create habitable planets. They would seed the building blocks of life across billions of worlds. They would hide gifts of knowledge in places where young species would find them when they were ready. And then they would leave, not die, leave. They would transcend physical form and become something else, something that could watch without interfering, something that could guide without controlling. Dr. Christopher Vance, the project's main ethicist, had given a famous speech. Daniel had memorized every word. "We have a choice," Vance had said. "We can be parents who never let their children grow up, or we can be parents who prepare everything for their children and then step back, who trust them to find their own way, who believe they can be just as great as we are if we give them the chance." That was 200 years ago. Since then, humans had been working, building, preparing. The generation ships were almost done. Thousands of them, carrying millions of humans, ready to spread across the galaxy and begin the great work. It would take 200,000 years, but humans were patient. They had learned to think in centuries, not days. Daniel turned away from the window. "Do you ever wonder if we are making a mistake?" Laura smiled. It was a sad smile, but also a peaceful one. "Every day," she said. "But then I think about the alternative. I think about what we would become if we stayed. I think about all the young species who would never get a chance to exist, and I know we are doing the right thing." She put her hand on his shoulder. "We are not giving up, Daniel. We are not running away. We are doing the hardest thing any species has ever done. We are choosing to trust the future. We are choosing to believe that the universe can be good without us controlling it." Daniel nodded. He understood. It was strange to think about. Humans had always wanted to be important. They had always wanted to be remembered. They had fought wars and built empires and conquered nature itself. And now they were choosing to disappear, to become a legend, a story that future species might not even believe. But they would leave something behind. Not power, not control, just a gift, a galaxy designed for life, a universe prepared for beings who had not even been born yet. In the lower decks of the ship, workers were finishing the last preparations. Engineers checked the engines that would carry them across the stars. Scientists prepared the equipment they would use to reshape reality itself. Families said goodbye to relatives who were staying behind to maintain Earth as a memorial. It would be a long journey. Generations would be born and die on these ships. Children would grow up never knowing what a blue sky looked like, never feeling real wind on their faces. They would only know the mission. But they would carry something with them, something important, the knowledge that they were part of the greatest act of love in the history of the universe. Daniel Hayes looked at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, millions of years from now, a young species would look up at the sky. They would see the planets that humans had made. They would travel the paths that humans had cleared. They would grow and learn and become something wonderful. And they would never know that it was not an accident. They would never know that someone had cared enough to prepare it all for them. Or maybe they would find out. Maybe, when they were ready, they would discover the truth. And maybe, just maybe, they would understand. Laura squeezed his shoulder. "Time to go," she said. "The future is waiting." Daniel took one last look at Earth. He whispered a goodbye that nobody could hear, and then he turned and walked toward the bridge. The eternal voyage shook as its engines came to life. The ship began to move. slowly at first, then faster and faster. Behind them, Earth disappeared into the darkness. Ahead of them, the stars were waiting. Project Genesis had begun, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. Commander Al walked through the long hallway of the ancient structure. The walls were alive with light. Images moved across them, showing things he could not understand. Stars being born, planets being shaped, life spreading across the darkness like fire across dry grass. Beside him, A was recording everything. Her scanner was working hard, collecting more data than she had ever seen. But the information was coming too fast. There was too much. "This place is a library," she said. "A record of everything that ever happened, everything humans ever did." Al stopped walking. He looked at the wall nearest to him. The images showed a small blue planet covered in water and green land. Earth, the human home world. "Show me," he said to the empty air. "Show me what you did." The wall changed. The images became clearer, and a voice spoke, the same gentle voice that had welcomed them at the entrance. 200,000 years, the voice said. That is how long Project Genesis lasted. 200,000 years of work spread across the entire galaxy. Al watched as the images showed human ships moving through space. Thousands of them, millions of them. They spread out like seeds from a flower, going in every direction. "We started with the stars," the voice continued. "Many stars in the galaxy were unstable. They would explode or collapse, destroying any planets around them. We fixed them. We adjusted their cores. We made them safe." The wall showed humans working on a dying star. They used machines that Al could not understand. The star changed color, growing brighter and more stable. "Then we moved the stars," the voice said. "We arranged them into patterns that would create safe zones for life, places where planets could exist for billions of years without being destroyed." Al thought about the sector where his home world existed. It was one of the safest regions in the galaxy. He had always thought it was luck. Now he knew the truth. "After the stars, we worked on the planets," the voice said. "We found dead worlds and gave them atmospheres. We brought water from comets and ice moons. We seeded the soil with the building blocks of life." A grabbed Al's arm. Her eyes were huge. "Commander," she whispered, "the voice is saying that our planet was designed, that our species was planned." Al did not answer. He just kept watching. The wall showed a young planet covered in lava and poison gas. Then it showed time passing. Thousands of years, millions of years. The lava cooled, the gas changed, water appeared, and then, slowly, life began. Simple life at first, just tiny creatures too small to see, but they grew, they changed, they became more complex. "We did not create life," the voice said, as if answering Al's thoughts. "We only created the conditions for life, the building blocks, the safe environments. Life created itself. Evolution did the rest. We just made sure it had a chance." Al felt something strange in his chest. Anger, gratitude. He was not sure. His entire understanding of the universe was changing. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you do all this?" The wall changed again. It showed a single human face. An old man with tired eyes but a warm smile. A name appeared below his face. Gregory Palmer, final custodian. "I have asked myself that question many times," Gregory said. His voice was old and rough. "The answer is simple. We did it because we could, and because we believed the universe should be full of life, full of minds asking questions, full of beings looking up at the stars and wondering." He paused. His eyes seemed to look directly at Al. "We knew we would not be here to see it. We knew we would disappear before any of you reached the stars. But we did not do this for thanks. We did not do this for worship. We did this because it was right." A was crying. Tears ran down her face, and she did not wipe them away. "How many species?" she asked. "How many did you create?" "We did not keep count," Gregory answered. but our calculations suggested that our work would lead to at least 10,000 intelligent species across the galaxy, each one unique, each one beautiful, each one free to find their own path. 10,000 species. Al knew of 7 that had reached the stars. And 3 others. But if the human was right, there were thousands more out there. Young species just starting to look up at the sky, species that had not been born yet. All of them existing, because humans had cared enough to prepare the way. The wall showed more images. Humans building huge machines to move planets into better orbits. Humans creating artificial moons to stabilize climates. Humans hiding caches of knowledge in places where developing species would find them at the right moment in their development. Everything was planned. Everything was designed. The galaxy was not a random collection of accidents. It was a garden, and humans had been the gardeners. "What happened to you?" Al asked. "Where did you go?" Gregory smiled. "That is the part that is hard to explain," he said. "We discovered that physical bodies are not the only form of existence. Consciousness can exist in other ways, in the fabric of space itself, in the energy that connects all things." Al did not understand. "We transcended," Gregory continued. "We left our bodies behind and became something else, something that cannot be seen or touched, but we are still here, watching, waiting, hoping that our children, all the species we helped create, would grow strong and wise." The old man leaned forward. "You found this place because you were ready. Your species has grown. You have learned to work with others. You have chosen peace over war, cooperation over conquest. That is why the signal called to you. That is why the door opened." Al looked at A. She looked back at him. "What do you want from us?" Al asked. "Nothing," Gregory said. "We want nothing from you. This library contains everything we learned, all our technology, all our knowledge. It is yours now, a gift with no conditions." He smiled again. "We only ask one thing. When you meet younger species, remember what was done for you. Remember that someone once believed you were worth saving. And maybe, if you choose, you can do the same for them." The wall went dark. The voice went silent. Al stood there for a long time. He thought about his home world, his people, everything they had built and achieved. He had always been proud of his species. Now he knew that their existence was not an accident. It was a gift from beings who had never asked for anything in return. He made a decision. "Download everything," he told every piece of data in this place. "We are taking it back to the council." "What will you tell them?" she asked. Al looked at the walls. The images were moving again, stars and planets and life spreading across the darkness. "The truth," he said. "I will tell them the truth, and then we will decide what kind of species we want to be." He turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the Library of Humanity glowed softly, waiting for the next visitors, ready to share its gifts with anyone who was ready to receive them. The humans were gone, but their legacy remained. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council had not seen a debate this fierce in 300 years. Representatives from every spacefaring species sat in the great chamber, shouting at each other, waving their arms and refusing to listen. Ambassador Al sat in the center of the room. He had been promoted after his discovery. Now he was supposed to help the council understand what he had found, but nobody wanted to understand. They just wanted to argue. War Chief El of the stood on his platform. He was a massive creature, covered in hard scales and sharp spines. His voice was like thunder. "This is a trick," he roared. "A lie created by weak species who want to control us. That did not come from some human garden. We evolved through strength, through war, through blood." On the other side of the chamber, High Priestess Selene of the raised her long, thin arms. Her species was the opposite of the. They were peaceful, spiritual, and completely devoted to their religion. "The humans were the first parents," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried across the entire room. They created us. We must honor them. We must build temples. We must pray to them. Al closed his eyes and sighed. This was exactly what Gregory Palmer had warned about: worship or rejection, fear or denial. Nobody was actually listening to the message. "Please," he said, "everyone please listen." Nobody listened. The arguing continued for hours. They refused to accept any part of the story. They wanted to treat the humans as gods. They were confused and scared. The other species had their own opinions, all of them loud and angry. By the end of the day, Al was exhausted. He walked out of the chamber and found a quiet corner where he could sit alone. He wanted to give up. He wanted to go back to his ship and fly away and never think about any of this again. But then he heard a voice. "You look tired." He looked up. A young female was standing in front of him. She was small and thin, barely more than a child by standards, but her eyes were bright and curious. "I am Myra," she said. "I am a junior diplomat. I heard your report, the one about the human structure." Al nodded. "Then you know why I am tired. Nobody believes me, or they believe me and they do not understand what it means." Myra sat down beside him. "I understand," she said. "At least I think I do. The humans did not want us to worship them. They did not want us to be angry at them. They just wanted us to grow up." Al looked at her. For such a young person, she was very smart. "That is correct," he said. "But how do I make the council see that?" Myra was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "Let me try," she said. The next day, Myra asked to speak to the council. Many of the senior diplomats laughed. What could a child possibly say that would matter? But Al supported her request, and eventually the council agreed. Myra stood in the center of the great chamber. She was so small compared to the massive room. But when she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "We argue about what the humans were to us," she said. "We argue about whether they were gods or gardeners or something else, but we ignore what they asked of us." She looked around the room. Her eyes met the eyes of every representative. They did not want worship. They did not want resentment. They wanted us to understand that power and knowledge come with responsibility. They could have ruled us. They could have made us slaves. They could have treated us like pets or experiments, but they did not. They lifted us up and then they stepped away. War Chief L made an angry noise. "That proves nothing. Maybe they were weak. Maybe they could not rule us." Myra shook her head. "They moved stars, War Chief. They created planets. They changed the laws of physics. If they had wanted to rule us, we would have had no choice. No, they stepped away because they believed we could be great on our own. They believed we could be their equals." She paused. "The question is not whether we accept our origins. We cannot change the past. The question is whether we are worthy of the gift we were given." The chamber went quiet. For the first time in days, nobody was shouting. In 50 million years, new species will rise from the worlds we have not yet found. They will look up at the stars and wonder if they are alone. What will they find? Will they find a universe that we have made better? Will they find help and guidance and hope? Or will they find only ruins? Will they find the echoes of our failure? Myra looked at Al. He nodded at her, encouraging her to continue. "The humans planted seeds across the galaxy. We are the harvest, and now it is our turn to plant seeds for the future, not because we owe the humans anything, but because it is the right thing to do." She took a deep breath. "I am young. I have not seen much of the universe yet, but I know this: the humans believed in us. They gave up everything, their bodies, their home, their entire existence, because they believed the universe deserved more life, more minds, more beings reaching for the stars." Her voice grew stronger. "Are we going to prove them right? Or are we going to spend the rest of eternity arguing about whether they existed at all?" The chamber was silent. Then slowly, High Priestess Selene lowered her hands. "The child speaks wisdom," she said. "Perhaps we have been thinking about this wrong. Perhaps the humans do not want temples. Perhaps they want action." War Chief L crossed his massive arms. His face was hard and angry, but something in his eyes had changed. "The will never admit that we were created by another species," he said. "But I cannot deny the data, and I cannot deny that this child speaks sense. If the humans truly made the galaxy safe for us, then perhaps we should make it safe for others. Not out of gratitude, out of strength." Al felt hope rising in his chest. One by one, the other representatives spoke. Some were still angry, some were still confused, but slowly a consensus began to form. The council voted to create a new organization. They called it the Palmer Initiative, after the human who had left the final message. Its mission was simple: find developing civilizations and protect them. Stabilize unstable star systems. Prepare the galaxy for the next generation of intelligent life. The humans had been gardeners. Now the council would be gardeners too. After the vote, Myra found Al. "Thank you," he said. "You did what I could not do." Myra smiled. "I just said what everyone was thinking. They were just too proud to admit it." Al looked at the great chamber. The representatives were leaving, but for the first time in days they were not angry. They had a purpose, a mission, a reason to work together. "The humans would be proud of us," he said. "Maybe they already are," Myra answered. "Maybe they are watching right now." Al thought about that. Gregory Palmer had said that humans still existed, somewhere in the fabric of space itself. If that was true, then they could see everything that happened today. He hoped they were smiling. The Palmer Initiative began its work the very next day. Ships were sent to survey unexplored sectors. Scientists began studying ways to stabilize dying stars. Diplomats started planning how to contact young species without overwhelming them. Humanity's legacy had taken root. And across the galaxy, on billions of worlds where life was just beginning, the future was already growing. 10,000 years had passed since the discovery of the repository. Senior custodian Amy walked through the ancient halls. Her species, had joined the Palmer Initiative 5,000 years ago. Since then, she had devoted her entire life to maintaining this sacred place. The repository had changed over the centuries. New wings had been added. New species had come to learn from its records. What was once a forgotten structure in dead space was now the heart of the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. The Palmer Initiative had grown beyond anything its founders had imagined. Over 10,000 species now worked together. They had protected countless developing worlds. They had prevented wars before they started. They had turned enemies into friends. The galaxy was at peace, real peace, the kind that lasted. Amy walked to the central chamber. This was where she did most of her work, maintaining the old systems, answering questions from visitors, making sure the human legacy was never forgotten. But today, something was different. The main console was blinking, a red light she had never seen before, a warning or maybe a signal. She walked closer and touched the screen. Words appeared, hidden protocol activated, threshold reached. Amy did not understand. She had studied every part of this system. She knew every file, every program, every secret room, but she had never seen this message before. "What is happening?" she asked the empty room. The walls began to glow, not the soft blue light she was used to, but something brighter, something alive. And then a voice spoke, not the recorded voice of Gregory Palmer. This was someone new. "Hello," the voice said. It was female, warm and gentle, like a mother speaking to a child. "My name is. I was the last human to exist in physical form before the transcendence. I have been waiting for this moment for a very long time." Amy's heart was beating fast. She had read about in the old records, the last custodian, the one who had watched over Earth until the very end. I do not understand, Amy said. Why are you speaking now? Why did the system activate? This image appeared on the wall. She was young with dark hair and bright eyes. She was smiling. We set a condition, said. We said we would only reveal ourselves when the galaxy proved it could nurture life as we once did, when it showed that it had learned the lesson we tried to teach. She looked directly at Amy. 10,000 years ago, the Palmer Initiative was created. Since then, you have saved billions of worlds. You have protected trillions of lives. You have become what we always hoped you would become. Amy felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not wipe them away. So you have been watching, she asked, all this time? Always, said. We never really left. We are woven into the fabric of spacetime itself. We became the forces you call physics, the constants you rely upon, the quantum waves that drive evolution. We are everywhere and nowhere, watching, hopping, waiting. She paused. And now you have passed the test. You have proven that the galaxy can be good, that life can choose kindness over cruelty, that power can be used to help, not to hurt. Amy did not know what to say. She just stood there, looking at the image of the last human. What happens now? She finally asked. Smiled wider. Now we give you our final gift, everything we learned, how to truly shape reality, how to transcend physical form, how to become gardeners of the cosmos yourselves. But this time you do not have to leave. This time we will work together. The walls exploded with light. Data began flowing across every screen, information so vast and complex that Amy could not even begin to understand it, technologies that seemed impossible, secrets that answered questions nobody had thought to ask. This is too much, Amy whispered. We cannot process all of this. You will, said. We will help you, we will teach you. It will take centuries maybe, but we have time. After 500,000 years of waiting, we are not in a hurry. Amy looked at the data streaming around her. She saw equations that described how to create new universes. She saw blueprints for machines that could think faster than light. She saw maps of places beyond the edge of the cosmos. Why now? She asked. Why not reveal yourselves earlier? You could have helped us so much. His expression became serious. Because you needed to learn on your own. If we had come to you as gods, you would have followed us blindly. You would never have discovered your own strength, your own wisdom, your own ability to choose what is right. She reached out her hand, as if she could touch Amy through the screen. We wanted you to be our partners, not our children, not our equals, and now you are. Amy thought about everything that had happened, the wars that had been prevented, the species that had been saved, the peace that had been built, piece by piece, over 10,000 years. They had done that, the Palmer Initiative, and all the others. They had proven themselves worthy. And now the humans were coming back. What do you need me to do? Amy asked. Tell the others, said. Tell them that humanity has returned. Tell them we come not as rulers or masters, but as friends, partners in the greatest work the universe has ever known. She smiled one last time. And tell them that we are proud of them, so very proud. The image faded, but the lights remained. The data kept flowing. The repository was waking up in ways it never had before. Amy ran to the communication console. Her fingers shook as she opened a channel to the Palmer Initiative headquarters. This is Senior Custodian Amy, she said. I need to speak to the council immediately. Something incredible has happened. The humans are coming home. Across the galaxy, the news spread like fire. At first, nobody believed it. Then they saw the data, they saw the technologies, they saw the proof. Humanity had never really left. They had been waiting, testing, hopping. And now they were ready to join the family they had created. In the months that followed, changes came faster than anyone could track. Human consciousness began appearing in the systems of every world, not taking control, just offering to help, answering questions, sharing knowledge, teaching. New partnerships formed. New projects began. The galaxy started preparing for the next phase of existence. The transcendence that humans had achieved 500,000 years ago would now be available to everyone. But that was just the beginning. Because out there, beyond the edge of the known universe, there were other galaxies, other clusters, other places where life might exist or could be made to exist. The work that humans had started was not finished. It would never be finished. There would always be more life to nurture, more minds to awaken, more stars to light. And now, for the first time, they would do it together. On a small blue planet that had been carefully preserved for 500,000 years, visitors came to pay their respects. They walked through the ruins of ancient cities. They stood on beaches where humans had once played as children. And everywhere they looked, they saw the same words, carved in stone, written in light, echoing through time itself. We were here, we built this for you, and we always believed you could be more than you imagined. Humanity had never boasted. They had simply known with absolute certainty that the universe was worth saving. And they had been right. The story was not over, it was just beginning, and now together they would write the next chapter. The stars were waiting, and they were ready.